Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brianna Lentz, and in today's video we are going to be fully finishing the 2020 Prairie Schooler cross-stitch chart. I stitched this from November 1st all the way to December 1st, which is today, and we're going to be finishing this into a pillow, and I'm going to walk you through the process. If you haven't already, now's a great time to subscribe, and let's get started. Okay, I'm going to finish my Prairie Schooler 2020 Santa Claus, and I went through and I dug out different homespuns and plaids, and I decided that even though I use this a lot in harvest and fall this year, I felt like it matched this green really well. And I have a lot of red in my Christmas decor, so I thought it'd be cool to bring in some green plaid for Christmas. Anyway, but it's homespun, so it's really thin. And this is really thick and stiff, so I thought when I sewed this together as a pillow, this is going to probably pull. So my solution and my new favorite thing, because I do like the look of homespun, but it just doesn't hold up necessarily for some of the tough things that I like to do with fabric. I am going to be using Pellon Fusible Featherweight interfacing. Basically, it's interfacing for lightweight to midweight fabrics. It is sticky on one side and not on the other, and so you just iron this onto your fabric and it just gives it that structure. So when I sew this to this, they'll be equal. I mean, relatively, it might be like a 40-60 ratio, right, of like heavyweight materials, but it shouldn't cause as much stress on this fabric with the stitches, because I found that when I do like use two different types of weight fabrics is that you might see your stitches pull, and that's just because one is way thicker and heavier than the other. So this will just keep it as a nice finish. And also I marked 20 BL on mine, which I'm very happy about, and I'm really happy with it. So let's get started. The first step is to cut your interfacing, or you could even call this your stabilizer. It's stabilizing the fabric. Cut this out to your desired piece, and I just cut mine out a little bit bigger, and I'm going to take this to my iron a little bit below your highest setting and just iron it down so that the glue melts and adheres to your fabric, which you can see here it adhered really well. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the lines on this particular chart, and I'm going to do 1 inch all the way around, and I'm not going by whether or not the weave of my 28 count even weave is straight. I'm just going by the lines that I already have on this particular chart to guide me. Once I've decided that everything looks as straight as I'm going to get it, I'm going to take this over to my mat and I'm going to see what size it is. It ended up being 6x7, so then I'm going to cut out my backing piece to 6x7 as well. And once I have that all cut out, I'm actually going to once again just hold up the two pieces of fabric together to make sure that they are in fact the right size. And again, you can see that it has good structure with the stabilizer, and I'm really happy with everything before I pin and start to sew. I just always double or triple check everything before the next step, because it's easier to double check than to rip out stitches and go back. So now I'm pinning all the way around, and I'm leaving about a 3-inch space at the bottom, and I'm pinning all the way around. I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this, so as long as I have everything straight and pinned together, I'm not too worried about it. But I like a good amount of pins. Like, I don't mind taking them out as I'm sewing. Another thing that I really like to do before I start a project, like if I put in a new bobbin with my thread, is I like to have a spare piece of fabric to sew with. So that way it brings up my bobbin thread, and if there's anything wrong, like for whatever reason something got caught, I can see it on that spare piece of fabric versus my, my project that I'm working on. Something else that I do when I start and stop my pillow, like right here I'm starting it and I'm going to go all the way around and then stop, I go back 4 or 5 times, because when I'm pulling out the pillow right side out, that's a lot of stress on those stitches. So if I can just go forwards and backwards 2 more times and prevent me popping out stitches as I'm ripping everything out like forward, turning it right side out, that saves me so much time. I didn't used to do that, and then I would pop out stitches and then I would sit there for another 10 minutes you know, trying to make sure that everything lined up because something went awry instead of just going forwards and backwards on my machine one more time. So that's something else that I really like to do. That is a time saver for the possibility of something happening wrong, right? All right, now I'm going to go ahead and clip my corners. Clip each corner, and then I'm going to come with my ruler and I'm going to cut everything down to an 1/8 inch seam allowance. That just reduces all the bulk and makes it a nicer finish once everything is turned out and pressed. Now we're going to turn everything right side out. I've got my chopstick ready. And this is where that stabilizer on your homespun is such a win, because if you turn your homespun out right now without having that stabilizer, I have in the past had my homespun rip right out of the stitches because it doesn't have enough strength against the weight of the other fabric. So turning everything right side out was so easy. And then also poking out my corners, I wasn't scared of like poking right through the homespun or the fabric because it had extra structure to it. Now is the point where I'm going to press everything, make sure that all of my points and everything is how I want it. And I also press my hem, I press my seam inwards on the very bottom, so when I go to stitch it by hand later, everything is already exactly where I want it, and it just makes everything behave easier for me when I'm hand stitching, especially because these are heavier weight fabrics. It's not going to budge that much anyways, but by ironing everything into place beforehand is just going to make everything a time saver and easier for you. And you want to be nice to yourself, right? So just go ahead and press that seam inwards. I don't particularly like to stuff my pillows that much, so this is a fairly flat pillow, and that's how I like it. Stuff your pillow, you know, however much you want. You can use sawdust even, but I just did enough to where it was like, you know, stuffed, but it can still stand up straight. And I thought about doing a mattress stitch, but my fabrics were too thick to really do that easily, so I just decided to use a whip stitch and take my time so my stitches look nice. And I really like the finish on this because it's handmade anyway, and so it just has like a really small whip stitch on the bottom, and I think it's really adorable. And that's it, you guys. I'm really, really pleased with this finish. I loved this stitch. I think that the North Wind is a great 2020 Prairie Schooler Santa. I'm really happy and proud to have this on my tree. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next project. Bye!